Hey, Rebel Rouser. I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7. So we're at episode number 1598, and seeing as how we are nearing the 1600 episode mark, I thought, hey, we can turn the tables around here a little bit, and instead of me interviewing somebody else, this time I'm actually getting interviewed for a Titans of Star Wars podcasting series, which is pretty amazing. And it's done by the Less Than 12 Parsecs podcast. This is Tim McMahon's podcast normally. And on this occasion, his friend Ryan Dassing, a friend of the show and also a friend of Star Wars 7x7 as well, was doing the interviewing honors. And it really was an honor to be interviewed for the series in general. And, to be called a Titan of Star Wars podcasting is amazing too. I mean, I don't necessarily feel like a Titan all the time, but anyway, I'll just leave it at that. I'm going to give you a link for the show in our show notes so that way you can go listen to the whole thing. But I'm only going to give you an excerpt here because it goes on for, a good long conversation. I thought this one might be historically interesting, at least since, getting near the round number, and some of the questions that Ryan asked me had to do with the history of the podcast. And so the one I'm going to share with you here has to do with the story of actually missing a day. I do get asked from time to time whether I have ever missed a day in the 4 and almost a half years of doing the podcast. Well, it's sort of a yes and no answer, and I'm going to explain it all for Ryan in this excerpt from the Less Than 12 Parsecs podcast. And I'll come back to you as soon as we're through with that clip, so stay tuned.
I have to ask this question. You do this every day. You've had no interruptions. It's almost like a weight on your back, but I have to know, what has been the closest call of you not being able to put out the next day's episode? And I know that you have probably backup plans in the can, but was there a scenario where you had to scramble to get to the next one out?
There was one instance where this is going way back. I'll say it was November of 2014. So it was still within 2014. And, I'm at the point now where the audio version of the episode drops at 3 a.m. Eastern time, like clockwork. And that's, every once in a while it's 3:15, but, it's been pretty solid like that. And the video versions are dropping at 7 a.m. Eastern, but it wasn't like that in the early going. And there was a day in November where I didn't actually get around to recording and posting the episode until nearly 8 p.m. Eastern time on that particular day. So about, 17 hours later from when I initially wanted to drop it.
Oh, man.
And because Libsyn, the hosting company that hosts all the podcast files, their clock is set on Greenwich Mean Time. So according to them, when it was 8 p.m., it was already the next day. So that is the one day that by Libsyn's standards I missed because it had already turned into the next day after 8 p.m. But I actually did load it during the calendar day here in the U.S. So that was, that's still a little bit of a splinter in my brain.
Samantha.
Otherwise, it has been, knock on wood, same day for the entire run, which is it'll be 4.5 years in January.
Wow. I remember I can't even remember when, but like I said, every morning I hit my refresh on my podcatcher. There you are. And one morning, nothing popped up. I'm like, oh, that's weird. I'm like, oh, I'll just give it a little bit. So throughout the day, I kept refreshing, and I'm like, oh no. I'm thinking, his count, it's gone. I'm like, but wait, what happened? Is he okay? So what I did was I downloaded a different podcatcher, and boom, there you were. Already said, 17 hours before I said, okay, ditching this podcatcher, going with the next one, because I was like, oh my God, it happened.
Wow.
It was just
dedicated. Thank you for being concerned about my well-being too.
Well, everyone's got to freak out if something had to happen for that doesn't happen. So
yeah,
we'll all be on the look for Alan. Something's happened.
Send out the search parties.
Right. So
send rogues 10 and 11 to station 3-8.
I really give you props for you run a business, you travel, you're a family man, you see your mother, you go from California back to New Hampshire. And just to keep this up, you go on family vacations. And I mean, it just has to be so many balls in the air juggling. It's like I said, you probably don't see it the way everyone else sees it, but I mean, that's really impressive.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It's, it's fun too, and it's that I think sustains me more than anything else. I don't think there's been a single day where I've sat down in front of the microphone and said, "Oh God, why am I doing this?" I mean, it seems crazy to say, especially after doing it 1,600 times, but there has not been a time where I've sat down in front of the microphone and said, I don't want to be doing this. There have been times where I've sat down in front of the microphone and said, I'm not sure what I'm going to say this time. I don't know what today's episode is going to be about, but it eventually comes to me. But yeah, never not wanting to do it.
That's amazing.
Welcome back. So hope you liked that story and everything else that went along with it. And I hope you'll consider checking out the whole interview over on Less Than 12 Parsecs. And I will post a link in our show notes for that. For now, though, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in for this episode. And I hope you'll subscribe to our podcast so that way you get the next episodes delivered to you without you having to think about it. And I hope that you will support this endeavor, this daily dose of Star Wars joy at patreon.com/SW7X7. For now, though, it just remains for me to say, may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
Is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2018 Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.